The open road can be a lonely place, especially at night. For truck drivers, the endless miles of dark highway are their office. But sometimes, what they encounter out there is more than just asphalt and headlights. These are stories from the drivers themselves. Tales that defy explanation and will make you think twice the next time you see a lone truck rolling through the darkness. Tonight, we're diving into 3 true trucker nightmares. Our first story comes from a veteran driver named Frank, who had been on the road for over 20 years. He thought he'd seen it all, until one rainy night in rural Oregon. Frank was behind schedule, pushing his rig a little harder than usual. The rain was coming down in sheets, making visibility a nightmare. Up ahead, through the blurry windshield, he saw a figure walking on the shoulder. It was a young woman, soaked to the bone, with no coat. Frank wasn't the type to pick up hitchhikers' company policy and common sense, but something about her desperate look made him pull over. She climbed in, shivering, and mumbled a thank you. You should slow down, Frank. There's a bad curve up ahead, a real bad one. Frank's blood ran cold. He had never told her his name. He glanced over at her. She was just staring straight ahead, her face pale in the dim light of the dashboard. He knew this road like the back of his hand and was already planning too slow for the upcoming hairpin turn. Still, her words echoed in his mind. He took the curve carefully, maybe a little slower than usual. As he rounded the bend, his headlights caught something in the road. It was a massive deer, standing right in the middle of his lane. Frank slammed on the brakes, the truck groaning and skidding, but he managed to stop just inches from the animal. His heart was pounding in his chest. He took a deep breath and turned to thank the girl. The passenger seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. She was just gone. The only thing left behind was a small puddle of water on the seat. Frank drove straight to the next truck stop, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the steering wheel. He never drove that stretch of road at night again. The second tale is one that's been passed around truck stops in the Midwest for years. A story that serves as a chilling warning. It involves a driver named Ray who was hauling a load of steel from Chicago to Denver. It was a long haul, and by the second night, fatigue was starting to set in. He was somewhere in the vast emptiness of Nebraska, with nothing but cornfields on either side. He decided to pull into a deserted rest area to catch a few hours of sleep. It was around 2 a.m., and the lot was completely empty except for one other truck parked at the far end. Ray backed into a spot, killed the engine, and climbed into his sleeper berth. He was just drifting off when he heard a faint tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like it was coming from the side of his trailer. He tried to ignore it, thinking it was just the wind or the truck settling. But it continued, rhythmic and deliberate. Tap, tap. Tap. Annoyed, Ray got up and peered out his window. He couldn't see anything in the darkness. He thought maybe the driver from the other truck needed help. He opened his cab door and called out, "Hello? Everything all right?" The tapping stopped. Silence. Ray waited a minute, then shrugged and got back in his bunk. As soon as his head hit the pillow, it started again. Tap. 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 This time, Now Ray was getting angry. He grabbed a heavy flashlight, swung the door open, and jumped down from the cab, determined to confront whoever was messing with him. He shone the beam down the length of his trailer. Nothing. He walked the entire perimeter of his rig, checking the tires, the doors, everything. There was no one there. The other truck was still parked at the far end of the lot, its cab dark. Confused and a little uneasy, Ray decided to just leave. He wasn't going to get any sleep here anyway. He fired up his engine and pulled out of the rest stop, glancing in his mirror one last time. And that's when he saw it. In the high beams of his own truck, reflected in the side mirror, he saw the other rig. But the driver's side door was wide open, and standing beside it was a tall, unnaturally thin figure. It wasn't moving, it was just standing there, watching him leave. Ray floored it, not looking back again until the rest stop was miles behind him. He later heard from another driver that several trucks had been found abandoned in rest areas along that same route, their cargo untouched, but their drivers missing. Our final story is perhaps the most personal and terrifying. This comes from a driver named Mike, and it happened just a few years ago on a lonely stretch of I-40 in Arizona. Mike was a family man, and he always had a picture of his wife and 2 young kids taped to his dashboard. It was his good luck charm, his reason for being out on the road. One night, he was making good time when he saw a man hitchhiking by the side of the road. Mike's policy was affirmed now, but this guy looked different. He was older, well-dressed, and carried a small briefcase. He looked more like a stranded businessman than a typical hitcher. Against his better judgment, Mike pulled over. The man got in and introduced himself as Arthur. He was polite and well-spoken, claiming his car had broken down a few miles back and his phone was dead. He just needed a ride to the next town. Mike agreed, and they started talking. Arthur was surprisingly knowledgeable about the trucking industry, asking Mike about his routes, his schedule, and the company he worked for. The conversation felt normal, comfortable even. Then, Arthur glanced at the photo on the dashboard. He smiled. "Beautiful family, Mike," he said. Mike froze. He hadn't told the man his name. His name wasn't on his uniform, and there was nothing in the cab to identify him. Mike tried to play it cool. "Thanks," he mumbled, his mind racing. How could this man know his name? He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. Arthur continued, his smile never wavering. "That's Sarah, right? And little Emily and Jake." Mike's heart stopped. He slammed on the brakes, the truck screeching to a halt on the empty highway. He turned to the man, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and rage. "How do you know their names?" "Who are you?" Arthur's friendly expression vanished. His face became cold, empty. He didn't answer. He simply opened the passenger door, stepped out into the night, and closed it softly. Mike watched, completely stunned, as the man walked calmly to the side of the road and just faded into the desert darkness. He wasn't walking away. He was dissolving, like smoke. Mike sat there for what felt like an hour, unable to move. He immediately called his wife, who confirmed that she and the kids were safe at home, completely unaware of the terrifying encounter. Mike quit his job the next week. He said that some things aren't worth the paycheck, and that whatever he picked up that night on I-40 wasn't human. From phantom passengers to mysterious figures in the dark, the open road holds secrets that we may never understand. For these drivers, the highway is more than just a job. It's a place where the veil between our world and another seems to be at its thinnest. So next time you're on a late-night drive and you see the distant lights of a lone semi-truck, remember these stories. Remember the men and women behind the wheel, navigating not just the roads, but the chilling mysteries that haunt them. Thanks for watching. Drive safe, and don't forget to follow for more stories from the edge of the map.